Happy Chanukah, and of course, also happy Thanksgiving to all of us out there. In honor of our Chanukah coming up for the next 8 days, I'd like to share with you some thoughts that you could share with your families, with yourselves, with ourselves. Let us begin. 22 centuries ago, when Israel was under the rule of the empire of Alexander the Great, there was one particular leader, Antiochus IV. He decided to force the pace of Hellenization, forbidding the Jews to practice their religion and setting up in the temple in Jerusalem a statue of Zeus. This was too much to bear, and a group of Jews, the Maccabees, fought for their religious freedom, winning a stunning victory against the most powerful army of the ancient world. After 3 years, they reconquered Jerusalem, rededicated the temple, relit the menorah with one cruse of undefiled oil that they found among the wreckage. It was one of the most stunning military achievements of the ancient world. It was, as we say in our prayers, a victory of the few over the many, the weak over the strong. It summed up in wonderful line in the words of our prophet Zechariah, the famous words, "Not by might nor by strength, but by my spirit, says Hashem." The Maccabees had neither might nor strength, neither weapons nor numbers, but they had a double portion of the Jewish spirit. And what is that? We have a spirit that longs for freedom, and we are prepared to fight for it. Never believe that a handful of dedicated people can't change the world. Inspired by faith and emunah, they can. The Maccabees did it then, so can we today. There's an interesting question the commentators ask about this great holiday of Hanukkah. For 8 days we light the lights, and each night we make a blessing over the miracles. She'asa nisim la'avoseinu, that Hashem made the miracles to our forefathers. But what was the miracle of the first night? The light that should have lasted 1 day lasted 8. But that means there was something miraculous about days 2 to 8. But nothing miraculous about the first day. Right? They had enough oil for the first day. Why are we celebrating for 8 days miracle? Miracles were from day 2 to day 8. And there are many, many answers given by our great sages. I share with you one. Perhaps the miracle was this, that the Maccabees found one cruse of oil with that seal intact, undefiled, seal intact by the high priest. There was no reason to suppose that anything would have survived in the systematic desecration that the Greeks and their supporters did to the temple at that time. Yet the Maccabees searched and found that one jar. Why did they search? Because they had faith that from this worst tragedy something would survive. The miracle of the first night was that of faith itself, the faith that something would remain with which, of course, to begin again. So it has always been in our history. There were times when any other people would have given up in despair after the destruction of the temple, or the massacres of the Crusades, or the Spanish expulsions, or the pogroms, or the Shoah. But somehow, all of us did not sit and simply weep. We gathered what was remained, rebuilt our people, lit the light like no other in history. A light that tells us and the world of the power of the human spirit to overcome every tragedy and to refuse to accept defeat. From the days of Moses and the bush that burnt and that was not consumed, to the days of the Maccabees and the single cruse of oil, Judaism, Yiddishkeit, our Judaism has been humanity's Ner Tamid, the eternal light, that everlasting light that no power on earth can extinguish. One of the key phrases of our time is the clash of civilizations. And Chanukah is about one of the first great clashes of civilizations. It was between the Greeks and the Jews of antiquity, between Athens and Jerusalem. The ancient Greeks produced one of the most remarkable civilizations of all time. The philosophers like Plato, Aristotle, historians, dramatists, they produced architecture of beauty that has never been surpassed. Yet, in the 2nd century before the Common Era, they were defeated by a group of Jewish fighters known as the Maccabees. And from then on, Greece, as a world power, went into rapid decline, while the tiny Jewish people survived every exile and persecution and are still alive and well today, Baruch Hashem. What was the difference? Why the different outcome? The Greeks, who did not believe in a single loving God, gave the world a concept of tragedy. We strive, we struggle, at times we achieve greatness, but life has no ultimate purpose. The universe neither knows nor cares that we are here. Along comes ancient Israel, all of us. We gave the world the idea of hope. We are here because Hashem created us in love, and through love we discover the meaning and the purpose of life. Tragedy, all those tragic cultures eventually disintegrate and die. Lacking any sense of ultimate meaning, they lose the moral beliefs and habits on which continuity depends. They sacrifice happiness for pleasure. They sell the future for the present. They lose the passion and energy that brought them greatness in the first place. That's what happened to ancient Greece. But Judaism, Yiddishkeit, and its culture of hope survived. And the Chanukah lights are a symbol of that survival, of Yiddishkeit, of Judaism's refusal to jettison, to throw away its values for the glamour and the prestige of a secular culture. Then and now. A candle of hope may seem to be a small thing, but on it is the very survival of a civilization that we all depend upon. I continue. There's a lore about Chanukah I find moving and very profound. Maimonides writes that the commandment of Chanukah lights is very precious. One who lacks the money to buy lights should sell something, or if necessary, borrow, so as to be able to fulfill this mitzvah of lighting the candle. The question then comes up, what if, on Friday afternoon, you find yourself with only one candle? What do you light it as? Do you use it as your Shabbos candle or your Chanukah one? It can't be both. Logic suggests that you should light it as a Chanukah candle. After all, there is no law that you have to sell or borrow to light lights for Shabbos. Yet the law is that if faced with such a choice, you light it as a Shabbos light. Let's discuss why. Let's listen to Maimonides. The Shabbos light takes priority because it symbolizes Shalom Bayis, domestic peace. And great is peace because the entire Torah was given in order to make peace in the world. Consider the following, dear friends. Chanukah commemorates one of the greatest military victories in Jewish history. Yet Jewish law rules that if we can only light one candle, the Shabbos light takes precedence, because in Yiddishkeit, in Judaism, the greatest military victory takes second place to the peace in the home. Why did Judaism, alone among all the other civilizations in the ancient world, survive? Why are we still here today? Because it valued the home more than the battlefield, marriage more than military grandeur, and children more than generals. Peace in the home mattered to our ancestors more than the greatest military victory. So here we are. We celebrate Chanukah. Spare a thought for the real victory, which was not military, but spiritual. Jews were the people. We are a people who value marriage, the home, the peace between husband and wife, above the highest glory of the battlefield. In Judaism, the light of peace takes precedence over the light of war. We all know the miracles of Chanukah, the military victory of the Maccabees against the Greeks, and the miracle of the oil that should have lasted one day, but stayed burning for 8. But there was a third miracle not many people know about. It took place several centuries later. After the destruction of the Second Temple, many rabbis were convinced that Chanukah should be abolished. After all, it celebrated the rededication of the temple. There's no more temple. And the temple was no more. It had been destroyed by the Romans under Titus. Without a temple, what was there left to celebrate? And the Talmud tells us that in at least one town, Lod, Chanukah was abolished. Yet eventually the other views prevailed, which is why we celebrate Chanukah to this very day. Why? Because though the temple was destroyed, Jewish hope, Jewish homes was not destroyed. We may have lost the building, but we still had the story. We have the memory and the light that still continues to burn inside of every one of us. And what happened once in the days of Maccabees could happen again. And it was those words, our hope is not destroyed. We have not lost our hope. And that is part of our life, our spirituality. So as we light the Chanukah candles, let's remember this. The Jewish people kept hope alive, and hope kept the Jewish people alive. We are the voice of hope in the conversation of humankind. There is one more. There are many, many commandments in Judaism to light lights. There are actually 3 commands. Let's think about this. There are the Shabbos candles, there is the Havdalah candle, and then there is the Chanukah candles. These are all mitzvahs. The difference between them is that Shabbos candles represents Shalom Bayis, peace in the home. They are lit indoors. They are, if you like, Judaism's inner light, the light of the sanctity of marriage and the holiness of home. The Chanukah candles are used to light the outside the front door. It was only the fear of persecution that took the Chanukah candles back inside. And in recent times, as we all know, the Lubavitcher Rebbe introduced the custom of lighting giant menorahs in public places to bring back the original spirit of that day. Chanukah candles are the light of Judaism that brings into this world that we are unafraid to announce our identity in public, to live by our principles, and to fight, if necessary, for our freedom. Now, as for the Havdalah candle, which is always made up of several wicks woven together, it represents the fusion of the two, the inner light of Shabbos joined to the outer light that we make during the 6 days of the week, when we go out into the world and live our faith in public. When we live as Jews in private, fulfilling our homes with the light of Shekhinah. When we live as Jews in public, bringing the light of hope to others. And when we live both together, then we bring light to the world. There was always 2 ways to live in this world that is often dark and full of tears. We can curse the darkness or we can light the light. And as Chassidus teaches us, a little light drives out much darkness. Dear friends, may we all help to light up the world during this upcoming great Chanukah Yom Tov. We bookend the Shabbos. We conclude the week. Women light the Shabbos candle. A little girl over the age of 3 lights 1 candle. The whole our home is filled with light. The first thing we do when we conclude the Shabbos, about to go into the world, make our impact, again we light the Havdalah candle, which, as we've just explained, is a kind of a bridge between the Shabbos candles in the home and the Havdalah candles. And the Havdalah candle now reaches into the Hanukkah candles to impact the world outside. Let's continue. There's a fascinating argument in the Talmud. Can you take one Hanukkah light to light another? Now usually, of course, we take the extra light, the shamash, and use it to light all the other candles. But suppose we don't have one. Can we light the first candle and then use it to light the others? Two great sages of the 3rd century, Rav and Shmuel, disagreed on this point. Rav said, no, you can't use that candle. Shmuel says, yes. Now normally, we have a rule that when Rav and Shmuel disagree, the law follows Rav. There are only 3 exceptions, and this is one. Why did Rav say you may not take one Hanukkah candle to light the others? Because, says the Talmud, it weakens the mitzvah. You diminish the first candle. Inevitably, you spill some of the wax or the oil. And Rav says, don't do anything that will diminish the light of the first. But Shmuel disagrees, and the law follows Shmuel. Why? The best way of answering this is to think of 2 Jews, both observant, both committed, both living Jewish lives. One says, I'm not going to get involved with the world outside. I'm not getting involved with my neighbors or with Jewish people who are less religious than myself, because if I do, my own standards will fall. I'll keep less. My light will be diminished. That's the view of Rav. The others say, no. When I use the flame of my faith to light the candle for someone else's life, my Jewishness is not diminished. It grows because there is now more Jewish light in the world. When it comes to spiritual goods, as opposed to material goods, the more I share, the more I have. If I share my knowledge or faith or love with others, I won't have less. I may even have more. That's the view of Shmuel. And that is how the law was eventually decided. So dear friends, on this great Yom Tov and holiday of Hanukkah, let's share our Judaism with others. Take the flame of our faith and help others' souls to brighten up, be full of passion and light. I'd like to change for a moment into another subject as well. Again, concluding with Chanukah, of course. And I say a special hello to all those listening. And if you'd wish to send us a text, I'll be happy to respond. I call this wake-up calls. Not everyone is lucky enough to get a wake-up call in life. Some people get theirs just in time. Others get it, but they don't hear it. Still others hear it loud and clear, but refuse to take any notice. Pharaoh got his in this week's portion, the Torah reading, when Joseph interpreted his dreams and advised him to appoint a wise and discerning man who would oversee a macroeconomic plan for the country. Joseph explained to the king of Egypt that because he experienced 2 dreams and woke up in between, it was a sign from heaven to wake up and act immediately, as this was a matter of utmost urgency. Pharaoh took the message to heart, and of course we all know the rest is history. On the health and well-being level, a little cholesterol, climbing blood pressure, or recurring bronchitis might be not so subtle signs that it's time for a change of lifestyle. These are the medical wake-ups, calls that we receive in life. Do we really have to wait for a heart attack, God forbid, to stop smoking or to start eating less and exercising more? That's what wake-up calls are for, to help us get the message before it's too late. Then there are those spiritual signs. I'll never forget a friend who shared with me the story of his own red lights flashing and how a changed spiritual lifestyle literally saved his life. He was a workaholic driving himself to the brink. Had he carried on indefinitely, he simply would not have survived. Then he decided to give Shabbos a try. What he had never previously, appreciated about Shabbos was that it is a spiritual, invigorating day of rest and spiritual serenity. And in discovering Shabbat, he rediscovered his humanity. He also discovered that he could play golf on Sundays instead of Shabbos. I once saw a short trigger film. It was presented at a Shabbaton weekend program, which depicted a series of professionals and artisans at work. As they became engrossed and immersed in their respective roles, they each became so identified with their work that they lost their own identities. Monday through Friday, the carpenter's face dissolved into a hammer. The doctor took on a face of a stethoscope, and the accountant's head started to look exactly like a calculator. Then on Shabbos, they closed their offices and came home to celebrate the day of rest with their families. Slowly but surely, their faces were remodeled from their professions to their personalities. Total immersion in their work literally had dehumanized, or what's the word? It had made them less than a human being. They had become machines. Now, thanks to Shabbos, they were human again. That short video left a lasting impression on the people. It's not easy to change ingrained habits. But Chanukah, which usually falls during this week's Torah portion, carries with it a relevant message in this regard. What do we learn from Chanukah? Take one day at a time. One doesn't have to do it all at once. One light at a time is all it takes. On the first night, we kindle a single Chanukah light. On the second night, we kindle 2 lights. On the third, 3. We add a little light each day, and before long, the menorah is complete, and all 8 Chanukah lights are burning bright. It's okay to take one day at a time. It's not okay to go back to sleep after you get a wake-up call, whether it's a medical well-being or a spiritual health wake-up call. The occasional wake-up calls are a valuable sign from Hashem that may be time for us to adjust our lives, our lifestyles, our priorities. Let us conclude, please Hashem, each of us in our own lives, to hear the call and of course to act with alacrity and enthusiasm and excitement. Wishing everybody a wonderful, happy Chanukah, happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for joining us this evening. All the best. Don't forget to give your children and grandchildren Chanukah gelt. That's the preferred gift item for the holiday, is to actually give gelt, money, because money is something that can be used for so many things, and when we give it in connection to Chanukah, children and grandchildren appreciate the money can be used for tzedakah, for their encouragement in their Jewish education, and as the Rebbe would always remind us, to give our spouse as well Chanukah gelt. Thank you so much. Wishing everybody all the best.